Hi, my name is Bente, I'm the Norse witch, and today I want to give you a little update on how my Trolldom practice is coming along. So, if you have watched my content for some time now, you will know that I am currently getting into Trolldom, which is Scandinavian folk magic. You may have already watched the last video that I did on it. That was the first one where I kind of explained how I got into it, why I'm doing it, and like what my first steps were. If you haven't watched it yet and you want to catch up, then here it is. But hello, I have a cat with me now. Always. But I thought that video has been some time ago, so I kind of owe you a little update because a lot of people seemed very interested in that practice or even just in my journey. Yeah, I feel like there are so many people currently that are trying to reconnect with the practices of their ancestors. So of course, hearing other people's experiences and doing the same thing, of course, can be majorly helpful, especially if you struggle with it a little bit. So yes, I thought in this video I would give you a little update on what has been going on since the last video. Let's do it. First of all, something that has happened actually pretty quickly after I made the first video was that I found out that the author of one of two English Trolldom books is offering courses in Trolldom. Both like live courses where you attend the Zoom calls and you can ask questions, but also archived ones. So you're getting access to the previous course basically. And I had decided, because a live course was already going on, that I would just do the archived ones. So I'm now slowly but surely working my way through all of these recordings. It is an 18 months course, so it's 1.5 years. That is a lot of content, and it's one recording, or if you're doing it live, then one meeting a week. So there is a whole lot to go through. And to be honest, I'm not doing it weekly. I'm doing it whenever I feel like it and whenever I feel like I have the time for it, because the recordings or the meetings are also usually around 1.5 hours. So it's not like you get 10 minutes of footage. No, you get like 1.5 hours. It's a lot of stuff to go through. It's so incredibly interesting. The beginning stuff is mostly about like basics, so not necessarily culturally specific. But after some time, you get into the culturally specific stuff. And that's where I have recently gone into. So I think I have gone through 4 recordings about the culturally specific, so Trolldom specific stuff. And currently I'm working through the Spådom recordings, so basically divination recordings. And it is so interesting. I'm not progressing as fast as I could, definitely. I'm slower. I'm not doing everything weekly, but I think that's okay because I don't want to pressure myself. This is something that I'm just doing for myself. As you have seen, I have not put out any content on Trolldom. And that's mainly because, first of all, I'm doing that for myself and for my ancestors. I'm doing that to reconnect. And I'm also like not at a point where I could share anything. In the last video, I have had people not request, but basically ask me to make content on Trolldom. But to be honest, I'm not at a point where I could do that. So these videos are the only ones that you will get for now, like my own experiences and what's going on with my journey in Trolldom. Because like, yeah, I have just started learning about it. So yeah, at this point, I don't feel like it's my place to like sit in front of a camera and teach you stuff about Trolldom, because yeah, I'm just a student. These videos are the only ones that you will get for now, probably for a couple of years, until I have found some footing in that area. I'm still struggling with a lot of stuff. I will go into that later, into all of the struggles that I still have with like finding my footing in Trolldom. Yeah, I've been doing the course, I'm still doing the course, I will still do the course for another 12 months or something. I still have, I think, at least 2/3 of the course to go. So it will be very, very interesting to see what happens. With all of the Trolldom techniques that I'm learning currently, I already have so much that I want to try, but also so much that I already do and that I already really like doing. So that is something that I also found interesting. I'm of course not only doing research, of course that's a lot of what I'm doing at the moment, because I feel like I should do more research in the beginning and then get into the actual practices later on. But through my research, I'm actually finding out that a lot of what I'm already doing is like a thing in Trolldom. So I was already practicing Trolldom without knowing it. So that was incredibly interesting. I'm finding out a lot about like how connected practices are and how connected folklore is, because of course if you find your way into a folk practice, then of course you also find your way into the folklore of that practice. And previously I had only really been doing research on Viking Age and before stuff, but not really on like the fairy tales and things like that. So I'm currently doing also a lot of research on just folklore and fairy tales from Scandinavia, and it's very, very interesting because I first of all, I actually found quite a lot of books about Northern German folklore that I didn't even know existed. So like also like stuff specifically about my region, which is extremely interesting. And when I read a lot of that stuff, I actually realized that a lot of the lore from the area that I am originally from, so the area where I was born and I lived in 18 years, it's so similar to even Icelandic lore. So I have found stories that are basically the same. They exist in various different flavors. So some are like obviously more pagan, some are obviously very Christianized, but they are the same story and they exist basically all around Scandinavia and Northern Germany. And I like the more research I do, the more I realize that Northern German lore is basically just Scandinavian lore. Makes sense since it has been Scandinavian up until 150 years ago. So it makes a lot of sense, but for some reason that didn't really register with me previously, and the more research I do, the more similarities I find, and that's just incredibly interesting. Something else that I have started doing very recently, like 2 months ago, I think I'm now on my streak day 69, so I have started learning Danish. I had debated whether I want to start learning Danish or maybe Swedish, but I thought that since I am from the Danish border, so the city that I was born in and lived in for 18 years is located at the Danish border, so it's very German Danish. I am already used to a lot of Danish culture and Danish language and stuff. So I decided, well, most of my ancestry is also Danish. Like, yes, I have Swedish ancestry and apparently also a little bit Norwegian, Icelandic. At least my ancestry was recently updated and all of a sudden there's like 5% Norwegian and Icelandic. Strange. But of course, most of my ancestry is Danish. That makes a lot of sense. In that area, that's just what happens. So I thought, okay, I will learn Danish. A language that I previously never wanted to learn. While I was still growing up in that area, I always thought like Danish is such an ugly language. It's like the ugly stepsister of the other Scandinavian languages, and I still don't think it's the most beautiful language ever. Like, nothing compares to Icelandic in my personal opinion, but I still decided to learn it, and it's extremely interesting. First of all, if you are already fluent in German and English, incredibly easy to learn Danish, especially with my knowledge of Icelandic, because I was learning Icelandic for like 1.5 years. So incredibly easy, like the vocabulary is either the same as German, the same as English, or the same as in Icelandic. So very, very easy. And something that I found out that I already had suspected, but now I have proof, is that like the specific variation of Low Saxon or Low German that is spoken where I'm from, and also the very, very specific random dialect that's spoken there, is like basically it's half Danish. And I think that's so funny because now I'm I find all of these words that I already know because they are also used where I'm from, but it's not like normal German. I just find a lot of similarities, a lot of things I already feel home at, and like, I don't know, learning Danish feels very homey and it feels very nice and cozy and quite easy. So I really, really hope that I will keep it up. Of course, like one of the main reasons I was doing it is that I could read sources in Danish, because if you're trying to get into Trolldom, you will find very, very quickly that there are 2 books in English, and that's it. And from there, well, what do? You will have to learn a Scandinavian language. So I decided Danish it is, and I recently even ordered my first Danish book. It's about like divination. It's a drømmebog, I think that's what it's called. So it's a dream book. So I would guess that it's a lot about like dream divination and like interpreting your dreams. It's an antique. It's from early 20th century, something like that. So it's an old book. And of course, back then, a lot of stuff was like dream interpretations and things like that. But I'm just excited to kind of just try to read that book, especially because it will be older Danish, and I don't know how different old Danish and newer Danish is. So it will be very interesting, but I feel like even if I don't succeed by myself, Google Lens will help me out. It will work. I'm pretty confident that I will find my way through it. I also, while yes, most of the things that I'm doing still is research, I also tried out my first Trolldom spell, basically. I adapted it a tiny little bit, because it was a healing spell for someone, and usually you need access to that person, but I did not have access to that person, so I made a puppet of that person instead and then applied the healing spell to that puppet. It worked like a charm, so I was very, very happy about that. So that was great, but that was the only like proper full-on spell from like the Trolldom tradition that I tried yet. Probably the thing that was most important for me the past few months, like apart from just doing research, I started diving much, much deeper into the folklore of my local flora, which of course, because I'm only living like 150 kilometers, 200 kilometers south from where I'm from, and only like half an hour south from where Denmark used to be. So the flora here is basically the same. You will find a lot of the same plants. I have, been connecting to my local flora much, much more and doing a lot of research on what folklore exists about these plants, and especially what folklore exists in Scandinavia about those plants. That was extremely interesting. I feel like I am very well connected to a lot of plants now. I am definitely finding some favorites. Sadly, some of those favorites are actually not that local. I mean, I know they used to grow here, they are native here, but they usually don't really grow in cities. So for example, Angelica, like I found Angelica in a park growing around a lake, because Angelica loves water, but it doesn't grow wild here anymore, really. I would love to find it somewhere else in the more rural area in northern Germany, but this far I haven't found it. But yeah, at least it lives in the park. I was very happy when I realized that, because I love Angelica. Angelica is amazing. I'm doing a lot with Angelica now. And yes, of course, you can order Angelica root basically anywhere from any apothecary. It's a very nice healing herb. A lot of people still use it. Angelica root tea is also a thing that is still used. So you will find it everywhere, but of course connecting to it like in person with the living plant is much more efficient. So that's something that I maybe want to do next year. This year I decided to basically do a focus year on blackberry, and that was very interesting. Blackberry also has a shit ton of folklore, not too much specific Scandinavian folklore, but from around my area there is folklore about blackberry, and like most of the folklore you find about it is very much spread throughout Europe, so it's very similar wherever you go. I'm still deciding which plant I want to focus on next year. And I'm thinking about maybe doing Angelica, but then I have to always go to this park. We will see. But yes, connecting to my local flora and doing a lot of research on Scandinavian plant folklore has been very, very important for me the past few months, and very, very fun. I love doing it. But yeah, that is where we are getting to my struggles. I think my main struggle, as I already mentioned, is that I definitely still feel like an imposter. I feel like I am not allowed to practice trolldom. I feel like I am a stranger getting into a space I'm not welcome in, which is total bullshit. Like I have not encountered a single person that said that I am not allowed in this space. Yeah, I know that there is no reason to feel this way, but I still feel like a huge imposter. Like whenever I tell someone that I'm like getting into trolldom, I always feel like they will tell me I'm not allowed to. And I know that's stupid, especially because I know I'm coming from an area that has been Scandinavian for the longest time, and I know that culturally I've grown up with a lot of Scandinavian influences and stuff, but at the same time I'm like, well, I didn't grow up fully in Scandinavian culture though, and how much can I connect to the folk practice of that land and that culture if I didn't fully grow up in that culture? So that's like a big struggle for me. But at the same time, I'm just trying to remind myself that even people that probably like grew up somewhere in Denmark, for example, they probably also didn't grow up with like using gunpowder or dead people's bones to do magical stuff, you know? I'm probably not too far off from other Scandinavian people, younger people that didn't grow up with like any folklore or without any of the older traditions. So I'm trying to remind myself of that, but it's pretty hard and it's strange. It's very strange because you know that my ancestors have practiced these things. So there is no reason why I shouldn't be allowed to, but still I feel that way sometimes, and that's a struggle. That's also one reason why I don't share a lot. One, of course, because I just don't know a lot yet. So yes, I'm doing research and stuff, so I could share stuff, but I feel like it's really not my place to share that as someone who's just getting into it. But also I feel like it's not my place to share it because I am not Scandinavian. Even though like 50% of my ancestry, even maybe with the 5% Norwegian and Icelandic, it's more than 50%, but about half of my ancestry is Scandinavian, but still, I feel like an imposter. I hate it, I hate this feeling, but it's there. I really have to work through it and maybe do some shadow work on it. A very nice shadow work session with my ancestors. I feel like that would be something that would be majorly helpful. If you know any like shadow work prompts and stuff about feeling like an imposter when getting into a specific folk practice, then let me know. I know that is very specific, but who cares? Maybe someone has some very good prompts. The second struggle I also already talked about. It's just that resources are very, very hard to find if you don't speak a Scandinavian language. That hopefully that problem will be resolved by me learning Danish. But yes, that is a big struggle. I'm just so glad that I found Johannes' course. I will link his website in the video description if you want to check it out, because I definitely recommend it. Yeah, I don't really know what I would do without the course, to be honest. It's also very, very nice because you not only get access to the course itself, but to like the entire community. So you can also ask questions and connect to other people. And a lot of the people there actually are Americans reconnecting with their ancestors. So that's very nice. I feel like those are all the struggles. At least I can't think of another one. The biggest one, as I said, is just the imposter reconnection problem, the feeling of not being allowed to reconnect. Like I feel the urge to do it and I feel the urge to get into this practice, but I feel like I have an internal barrier that I have to kind of overcome first before I can like truly reconnect. And I really hope that I will be able to take that hurdle soon, because it's hella annoying. But yeah, with that being said, that is my update on how my Trolldom journey is coming along. I will keep you updated as always. But of course, I want to do a patron shout out as always. Thank you so much to Anne, Kate, Cade, Thistle, Adam, Z, Kent, Kelly, Brittany, Emmer, Celine, Smolkata, Josh, Elinura, David, Kristini, Rixie Business, Valo, Annalena, Bust, Ashley, Erica, Kristen, John, Phoenix, Jenny, Maggie, Misty, Amy, Colette, Bethany, Timothy, Coffee, or the Honorary Gossip Squirrel, and last but not least, Bjorn. Thank you all so much. It's majorly helpful. Thank you so much. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and give a thumbs up, and definitely ring the bell down below so that you're notified whenever I upload a new video. Of course, you can check out my other socials or my store for ethically and sustainably witchcraft and paganism tools. I'm finally getting back into the groove of creating some fun new projects. I have a lot of fun stuff planned, so check that out. Of course, if you want to support me in another way, then you can check out my Patreon, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!